to fourth, still sixth from the lane. King Fury goes to the front with Starrin' in My Dreams in second. Unbridled Honor third up on the outside. Final furlong of the Stone Street Lexington. King Fury against the rail, 3-length lead. Unbridled Honor second, Starrin' in My Dreams third. Proxy is fourth. King Fury, Brian Hernandez Jr. to win the Stone Street Lexington.
Welcome back to another Kentucky Derby profile here on Racing Rundown. Today we're talking about King Fury, the winner of the Lexington Stakes at Keeneland. A surprise entry for this Kentucky Derby. Not a surprise entry because it looked like he was going to be also eligible during the last couple of weeks of the prep season. But with the amount of defections that we've seen this year, it has now gotten to the point where King Fury is going to be in the starting gate, not just the 20th horse, and he's number 19. There is one more horse left behind King Fury that we will have a preview for. I will be doing Brooklyn Strong in the next video. But talking about King Fury in this one, this is a horse who is coming out of a win in the Lexington Stakes, as I mentioned at the beginning of the show, and that's his only shot of the year. Now, trainer Kenny McPeek is not one who is afraid to take shots with his horses. He actually took a shot with King Fury earlier in his career. He won the Street Sense Overnight Stakes at Churchill Downs on the 25th of October. Kenny McPeek turned him around the very next weekend, ran him in the Breeders' Cup. It didn't go too well. It wasn't an absolutely horrible run. He ran 7th. It wasn't the best race, but it wasn't a completely terrible race. So, looking at this horse, this is also a horse who is extremely inconsistent. When he wins, he wins. And then when he loses races, he doesn't lose races narrowly. He loses races by large amounts. You look at his 3 career losses: 8th in the Breeders' Futurity, 7th in the Breeders' Cup, 5th in the Kentucky Jockey Club. Excuse me, I almost said 6th there. 5th in the Kentucky Jockey Club, and those 2 other finishes at Keeneland. So it's definitely not a Keeneland thing because he came back and won the Lexington Stakes. So this is a horse who, for me, is very perplexing, even though I thought he would add an element to the Kentucky Derby. So if it had gotten to the point where he was able to get in, I would not have been upset by it. I'm not upset that he's in this Kentucky Derby, given some of the other options that could be in the Kentucky Derby as opposed to him. And I think he's just an interesting horse to look at. Now, obviously, you look at him, I already talked about the inconsistency. 3 career wins, those were nice races. 2 of those are stakes races. But 3 really not good performances. I mentioned that the Breeders' Cup was not a horrible effort. The Breeders' Futurity was not that good. Even though he was a head away from being 6th. There was a dead heat for 6th in that, so he was 8th. He was a head away from being 6th in the race. Still wasn't that good of a race. He was very much well beaten by Keep Me in Mind and Essential Quality. Essential Quality, the winner. Keep Me in Mind, second. And even Superstock, the winner of the Arkansas Derby. So, you look at that. There's not a lot of silver lining there. There's also not a lot of silver lining in the Kentucky Jockey Club. That was a field that has been coming out of that race very, very bad. King Fury is the only horse to date from that race to come back and win, and that was in the Lexington Stakes, which is his most recent start. The Lexington was a good race, but if you look at the Lexington, that was a race where there were several horses that are very nice 3-year-old sprinters going up front in that race, and they gunned it early, and they allowed the race to open up for horses like King Fury and Unbridled Honor, the 2 horses that were the farthest back early in the race, were able to come late. So I think that race is more of a product of a complete pace melt. That's an old-fashioned pace meltdown in that race. It was also a very sloppy surface there. That could be an example. You look at, especially the 3/4 time, and you say, okay, well, it's starting to slow down there. It wasn't a very good surface to run over. So that is one thing, though, that you can say about King Fury is he is tested over the surface, and it looks like this being recorded on Sunday of Derby week, that it is going to rain. That's what the forecast says at this point. So if you're someone who plays based on the track condition, that could be a good thing for you that King Fury is coming off of a surface or is coming off of a win over a wet surface. So that is something that at least he has experienced it, which some horses cannot say going into this Kentucky Derby. But another thing, and I want to bring in a statistic, because I talked about this a little bit with helium, not as much this particular statistic, but you look at history of the Kentucky Derby, and in modern Kentucky Derby history, so for record, what I mean by modern Kentucky Derby history, verifying this with the official Kentucky Derby statistics, going back to 1955, which is what I'm using for this statistic timeline. Since 1955 until today, there has not been a single horse that won the Kentucky Derby with one prior start before their Kentucky Derby. So that's definitely something that goes against King Fury for me here. Now, inexperience is not a problem with him because you look, he's got 6 career starts, but it's just the fact that he was coming off a layoff in that Lexington Stakes where there was a lot of things that went his way. That's the problem that I have with King Fury in this race. He has not been overly consistent in his career. His one graded stakes win, which was that Lexington, I think was very, very dependent on circumstances. If they don't go that fast early in that race, I don't think King Fury is going to be the winner there. I'm not overly impressed by his runs against Grade 1 Company, not in the slightest. His 8th place finish in the Breeders' Futurity, I think, was a bad race. And I said I didn't absolutely hate the Breeders' Cup run, but he was still 7th, beaten very handily by horses like Essential Quality and Hot Rod Charlie. So, those two of those horses are going to be very highly touted Derby starters. If those 2 horses are beating him by a very large margin, then what does that say about King Fury? So the only thing that I would say about King Fury, the only way that I would consider using him at all, is if you think there's going to be a complete pace meltdown in this Kentucky Derby and he can come running late. I would not be shocked if he was able to do that if he had a complete pace meltdown to run into. But I think he's going to have to be very, very trip dependent, and because of that, I can't trust him in this race. So I'm going to be against King Fury in here. Does add an interesting dynamic to this race. I think he should be very high on the odds board, and if he is, then you could, and you think there's going to be a complete pace meltdown, then consider taking a shot at him, but aside from that, I would stay away from King Fury. So that's it for this preview. We will have one more Kentucky Derby preview, hopefully, assuming that no other horses drop out, and we have another also eligible surprise entry. That will be Brooklyn Strong, so you'll see that after this video. Have a good one. Make sure to check out our other previews, and we'll see you later on this week for our big Kentucky Derby preview and pick video. Have a good one.